The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbited silently around the cold moon of Valoria Prime. Inside, dozens of technicians watched their screens with tired eyes. Nothing ever happened in this sector. It had been peaceful for 300 years. Technician Varl was drinking his third cup of stimulant when his screen flickered. He almost ignored it. Probably another asteroid, he thought. But then the numbers started appearing, and his cup slipped from his thin fingers. "Commander Thorl," he called out, his voice shaking. "You need to see this." Fleet Commander Thorl was a tall being with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. He had served the Valorian Empire for 60 years. He had seen pirates, rebels, and even a small border war. But he had never seen anything like what appeared on the screen. "What am I looking at?" Thorl asked, leaning closer. "Ships, Commander. 12 of them. They just appeared at the edge of our sensor range." "Appeared? From where?" Varl checked his readings again. "They came through some kind of tunnel. A fold in space. We have never seen this method of travel before." Thorl felt his heart beat faster. The Valorian Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They knew every species within 100 light years. They had treaties and trade agreements with all of them. But these ships were different. These ships were unknown. "Show me everything," Thorl commanded. The main screen lit up with data. Varl pulled up the visual feed first. The ships were ugly by Valorian standards. They were blocky and gray, covered in what looked like armor plates. They had no elegant curves, no beautiful designs. They looked like they were built for one purpose, only .war. "Their technology level?" Thorl asked. "Primitive, Commander. Their engines are basic fusion reactors. Their weapons appear to be simple kinetic cannons and guided missiles. Their shields are barely functional by our standards." Thorl relaxed slightly. If these strangers wanted a fight, the Valorian fleet would destroy them easily. But something still bothered him. Why would such a primitive species travel so far? What did they want? "Run a full biological scan," Thorl ordered. "I want to know what kind of creatures are inside those ships." Varl nodded and began the scan. The Valorian sensors were the best in the known galaxy. They could detect individual cells from thousands of kilometers away. They could measure heartbeats, body temperature, and even brain activity. Nothing could hide from them. The first results came in, and Varl made a sound that Thorl had never heard before. It was something between a gasp and a scream. "Commander," Varl whispered, "this cannot be correct." Thorl pushed the technician aside and looked at the data himself. His 4 eyes went wide. His blue skin turned pale. For a long moment, he could not speak. The biological readings were terrifying. The creatures inside those ships had internal body temperatures of over 37 degrees. Their blood carried iron, a toxic metal that killed most species. Their muscles were dense and powerful, capable of producing force that could crush Valorian bones with ease. Their skeletal structure was solid, not hollow like civilized species. And their healing rate was impossible. Cuts and wounds closed within days. Broken bones repaired themselves within weeks. But the worst part was something called adrenaline. The scanners detected a chemical in the creatures' bodies that activated during stress. When this chemical released, the beings became stronger, faster, and almost immune to pain. They could keep fighting even with severe injuries. They could push their bodies beyond normal limits. These were not explorers. These were not traders. These were weapons. Living, breathing weapons wrapped in skin. "How many of them are on those ships?" Thorl asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Over 8,000, Commander." Thorl stepped back from the screen. 8,000 of these monsters. 8,000 Death World predators flying through Valorian space in warships. This was not first contact. This was an invasion. Send an emergency signal to the home fleet, Thorol commanded. Tell them we have a code black situation. Unknown hostile species. Extreme biological threat. Yes, Commander. Within minutes, the message reached Valoria Prime. Within an hour, the Valorian War Council assembled. Within 2 hours, the largest fleet in Valorian history began moving toward the border. But Thorol knew it would not be enough. He had seen the numbers. He had seen what these creatures were capable of. If they decided to attack, the Valorian Empire would fall. On the bridge of the human flagship Eternal Dawn, Admiral Una stood with her hands behind her back. She was a small woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She had served in the United Earth Navy for 25 years. She had fought in the Mars Rebellion and the Jupiter Campaign. But this mission was different from anything she had ever done. This was humanity's first contact with alien life. Status report, Una said calmly. Her communications officer, a young man named Minho, looked up from his station. Admiral, we are detecting multiple signals from the nearby system. Radio waves, laser communications, and something we have never seen before. They know we are here. Good, Una said. That is the whole point. We came to introduce ourselves. The bridge crew worked quietly around her. Navigation Officer Ji-hoon plotted their course toward the nearest planet. Weapons Officer Duri kept his hands away from the firing controls. Medical Officer Hana reviewed her first contact protocols. They were all nervous, but they trusted their admiral. Una had given them a simple order before they left Earth. Be peaceful. Be patient. Be human. Admiral, Minho said suddenly. I am receiving a transmission. Audio only. Put it through. The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice came through, translated by the ship's computer into broken but understandable words. Unknown vessels. This is Fleet Commander Thorol of the Valorian Empire. You have entered our territory without permission. Identify yourselves immediately. State your intentions. Any hostile action will be met with overwhelming force. Una smiled slightly. The aliens were scared. That was understandable. Humans probably looked very strange to them. But she had not come here to fight. Open a channel, she said. Channel open, Admiral. Una took a breath and spoke clearly. Fleet Commander Thorol. This is Admiral Una of the United Earth Navy. We come in peace. We are explorers from a planet called Earth. We have traveled a great distance to meet other intelligent species and establish friendly relations. We carry no hostile intentions. We wish only to talk. There was a long silence. Thorol's voice returned, sharper than before. You claim to come in peace. Yet your ships are clearly designed for war. Your weapons are active. And our scanners show that your crew members are dangerous. Explain yourself. Una frowned. Our weapons are not active. Our shields are at minimum power. We have made no aggressive moves. What exactly do your scanners show? Another pause. When Thorol spoke again, his voice trembled. Your bodies. Your biology. You carry weapons inside your own flesh. Your blood is toxic. Your muscles can crush metal. Your body repairs damage that would kill any normal being. You are walking weapons. You are monsters. The bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. Minho turned to the Admiral with wide eyes. They scanned our biology? They think we are weapons because of our bodies? Una felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of her wanted to laugh. Part of her wanted to cry. Humans had crossed the stars to find friends, and the first species they met was terrified of them. Not because of their technology, not because of their numbers, but because they were human. Commander Thorol, Una said slowly, I understand your confusion, but I must tell you something important. What you see in your scans is not weapons. It is simply how our species evolved. We come from a planet with harsh conditions, high gravity, extreme temperatures, dangerous predators. Our bodies adapted to survive. We are not engineered soldiers. We are just people. Thorol did not respond. The silence stretched for minutes. On the Valorian command ship, Thorol stood frozen before his screen. His officers watched him, waiting for orders. But Thorol could not think clearly. Everything he knew told him these humans were dangerous. Everything he saw confirmed it. Yet their leader spoke of peace. Their ships had not fired. Their shields were lowered. Could they be telling the truth? Could such terrible creatures truly want friendship? "Commander," one of his officers said, "the home fleet is asking for instructions. Do we attack or wait?" Thorol closed his 4 eyes. He remembered his training. He remembered his oath. Protect the Empire at all costs. Destroy any threat before it grows. But he also remembered something his mother told him when he was young. Fear makes enemies out of strangers. Wisdom makes friends. He opened his eyes. "Tell the home fleet to hold position. We will talk first. Then we will decide." It was not peace, but it was not war either. For now, that was enough. On the eternal dawn, Admiral Una received the message. The Valorians would talk. The first battle had been won without firing a single shot. She turned to her crew and allowed herself a small smile. "Good work, everyone. This is going to be a long conversation. Let us make it count." Minho nodded. Ji-hoon breathed out in relief. Hannah began preparing her files on human biology. They had a lot of explaining to do. Somewhere between the 2 fleets in the cold darkness of space, something new began. Not quite trust, not quite understanding, but a chance. A small chance for 2 very different species to find common ground. And sometimes, that is all you need. The transmission from Fleet Commander Thorol ended, and the bridge of the Eternal Dawn fell silent. Admiral Una stood motionless, her mind racing through possibilities. The Valorians thought humans were monsters. They believed human bodies were weapons. This was not the first contact she had imagined. "Admiral," Minho said quietly, "what do we do now?" Una turned to face her crew. They looked at her with trust in their eyes. These were good people. Soldiers, yes, but also scientists and diplomats. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return home. They deserved honesty. "We have a problem," Una said. "The Valorians have scanned our biology and decided we are dangerous. They are scared of us. Scared creatures make bad decisions. Our job now is to show them the truth." "And what is the truth, Admiral?" Ji-hoon asked from his navigation station. Una smiled slightly. "The truth is that humans are not weapons. We are just survivors. Our planet tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We survived through stubbornness, creativity, and helping each other. That is what we need to show them." Medical Officer Hannah stepped forward. She was a calm woman in her 40s, with gentle hands and a steady voice. She had spent her career healing people, not fighting them. But she understood the situation better than anyone. "Admiral, may I suggest something?" "Go ahead, Hannah." "The Valorians fear our biology because they do not understand it. Let me prepare a complete medical briefing. Every detail about human bodies. Our evolution, our limitations, our weaknesses, everything." "Our weaknesses?" Weapons Officer Dury frowned. "Is that wise? They already think we are monsters. If they know how to hurt us." Hannah shook her head. "That is exactly the point. Monsters have no weaknesses. By showing them our vulnerabilities, we prove we are not monsters. We prove we are mortal. We can be hurt. We can die. Just like them." Una nodded slowly. Prepare the briefing, Hannah. Include everything. If we want trust, we must give trust first. Yes, Admiral. While Hannah worked on her presentation, Minho continued monitoring the Valorian communications. What he heard worried him. The aliens were transmitting rapidly between their ships. He did not understand most of it, but the computer caught certain words. Threat, invasion, war. Admiral, Minho said, I am picking up a lot of military chatter. They are moving ships into attack formation. How many ships? Our sensors detect 47 vessels so far. More are coming from the inner system. Una felt the weight of the moment. 12 human ships against an entire alien fleet. The Valorians might have weaker technology, but numbers mattered. If they attacked all at once, the human fleet would be destroyed. But Una had not survived 25 years of service by panicking. She had another plan. Ji-hoon, move our fleet into a defensive circle. Shields up but weapons cold. I want every ship broadcasting a message of peace on all frequencies. Yes, Admiral. Dory, if they fire first, we fire back. But only to disable, not destroy. Aim for engines and weapon systems. No killing unless absolutely necessary. Dory nodded grimly. Understood. The human fleet moved smoothly into position. 12 ships formed a ring, each one facing outward. Their shields glowed faintly with protective energy. Their weapon ports remained closed. It was a defensive stance, nothing more. On the Valorian command ship, Fleet Commander Thorol watched the humans with growing confusion. His officers were shouting for attack. His superiors demanded action. But something held him back. The humans had not fired. They had not threatened. They had only asked to talk. Commander, his second officer said urgently, the War Council has ordered immediate engagement. They say we cannot risk letting these creatures enter our territory. I heard the order, Thorol said quietly. Then why are we not attacking? Thorol pointed at the screen. Look at them. They are surrounded, outnumbered. Our weapons could destroy them in minutes. Yet they lower their shields and ask for peace. Does that seem like the behavior of invaders? It could be a trick. Perhaps. But what if it is not? The second officer had no answer. Thorol made a decision. It might cost him his career. It might cost him his life. But he could not attack creatures that had done nothing wrong. Open a channel to the human flagship, he ordered. I wish to speak with their leader directly. Moments later, Admiral Una's face appeared on the Valorian screen. She looked calm and confident, despite the weapons pointed at her fleet. Thorol studied her carefully. She had only 2 eyes, arranged horizontally. Her skin was a strange brownish color. Her body was small but clearly powerful. She looked terrifying. She looked like a predator wearing the mask of civilization, but her voice was soft. Fleet Commander Thorol, thank you for speaking with me again. I know you are under pressure to attack us. I am grateful for your patience. Thorol felt surprised. How did she know about the pressure? Did humans read minds as well as heal wounds? Admiral Una, he said carefully, my government believes you are a threat. They have ordered me to destroy your fleet. Give me a reason not to. Una nodded slowly. I understand. Let me offer you something. A complete breakdown of human biology. Every strength and every weakness. We will hide nothing. In return, I ask only for a chance to explain ourselves. 1 hour of your time. That is all. Thorol considered the offer. His officers whispered behind him, urging caution. But Thorol had learned something in his 60 years of service. Sometimes the bravest thing was not to fight. 1 hour, he agreed. Send your information. I will review it personally. Thank you, Commander. Transmitting now. The data stream began flowing from the Eternal Dawn to the Valorian flagship. Medical Officer Hannah had prepared everything. Charts and diagrams. Evolution history. Biological functions. Chemical compositions. Every secret of the human body. Thorol read the information in silence. His officers read over his shoulders. As the minutes passed, the fear in the room began to change. It did not disappear, but it shifted into something else. Wonder. The humans had evolved on a planet classified as a death world. Class 12 danger rating. Extreme gravity, toxic atmosphere, temperature variations of over 100 degrees. Every continent had predators that could kill. Every ocean had monsters that could swallow ships. Disease, poison, natural disasters. By all logic, no intelligent species should have evolved there. The conditions were too harsh. The survival rate was too low. Yet somehow, these creatures had not only survived, they had thrived. Their iron-based blood was toxic to most species, but it allowed them to carry more oxygen. Their dense muscles were exhausting to maintain, but they gave humans incredible strength. Their high body temperature made them uncomfortable to touch, but it let them function in almost any climate. And their healing ability was not magic. It was just adaptation. Millions of years of fighting, falling, and getting back up. Their bodies had learned to repair themselves because they had no other choice. They are not weapons, Thorol said quietly. They are survivors. His second officer shook his head. They are still dangerous, Commander. Look at this section. When threatened, their bodies produce chemicals that increase strength and speed. They can ignore pain. They can fight until their hearts stop. Yes, Thorol agreed. But look at this part as well. He pointed to a section about human psychology. It describes something called empathy. The ability to feel what others feel. The drive to help those in pain. The instinct to protect the weak. Humans were not cold killing machines. They had emotions. Strong emotions. They formed bonds with other creatures. They cared for their sick and elderly. They mourned their dead. They told stories and made art and dreamed of the stars. They were not so different from Valorians after all. Commander, his communications officer called out. The War Council is demanding a status report. They want to know why we have not attacked. Thorol straightened his back. He had made his decision. Tell the War Council that I have engaged in diplomatic contact with the human fleet. Tell them that initial assessments suggest these creatures may not be hostile. Tell them I recommend a formal first contact protocol rather than military engagement. Commander, they will not be happy. I do not care about their happiness. I care about doing the right thing. On the Eternal Dawn, Admiral Yuna watched the Valorian fleet with tense attention. The hour was almost over. No attack had come. No more threats had been transmitted. But she could feel the danger in the air. Admiral, Minho said, I am receiving another transmission from Commander Thorol. Put it through. Thorol's voice filled the bridge. He sounded tired but determined. Admiral Yuna, I have reviewed your information. I have spoken with my officers. I have made a decision that may end my career. But I believe it is the correct one. Yuna held her breath. I am standing down my fleet. The Valorian Empire will not attack your ships. Instead, I am requesting a formal diplomatic meeting. Face to face. I wish to meet a human with my own eyes. Yuna felt her heart pound in her chest. This was what they had come for. This was what they had traveled so far to achieve. Commander Thorol, I would be honored to meet you. Name the time and place. Neutral ground. The small moon between our positions. Bring only a small party. We will do the same. Agreed. We will meet in 6 hours. 6 hours, Admiral. I look forward to it. The transmission ended. The bridge erupted in quiet celebration. The shuttle left the Eternal Dawn in complete silence. Inside, Admiral Yuna sat with her small team. Hannah reviewed her medical files one more time. Minho tested his translation equipment. Ji-hoon monitored the flight path to the neutral moon dot. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. They all knew what was at stake. The moon was small and gray, covered in dust and ancient craters. It had no atmosphere, no life, no value. But today, it would become the most important place in the galaxy. Yuna watched through the window as they approached the landing zone. Another shuttle was already there. Valorian, sleek and silver, much more elegant than the human transport. 3 figures stood beside it, waiting. "That is Commander Thorol," Minho said, pointing to the tallest figure. The other 2 appeared to be advisors or guards. "Any weapons?" Yuna asked. Minho checked his scanner. "None detected." They came unarmed as well. Yuna nodded slowly. Both sides had taken the same risk. That was a good sign. The human shuttle landed 50 meters from the Valorian ship. Dust flew up from the surface, then settled in the weak gravity. Yuna stood and looked at her team. "Remember the rules. Speak slowly. Show no aggression. If anything goes wrong, get back to the shuttle immediately. Ji-hoon stays here to keep the engines warm." "Understood." Ji-hoon said. Yuna, Hannah, and Minho put on their environmental suits. The suits were bulky, but necessary. The moon had no air. Without protection, they would die in seconds. The airlock opened, and they stepped onto the surface. The ground crunched beneath their boots. In the distance, the Valorian party began walking toward them. They met in the middle, under a black sky filled with stars. Fleet Commander Thorol was even more impressive up close. He stood nearly 2.5 meters tall, with long limbs and delicate fingers. His 4 eyes studied the humans with obvious curiosity. His pale blue skin seemed to glow faintly in the starlight. The 2 species faced each other for the first time in history. "Admiral Yuna?" Thorol said through his translator. "Thank you for coming." "Commander Thorol, thank you for giving us this chance." Thorol looked at the 3 humans carefully. They were so small, so compact. Their suits hid most of their bodies, but he could see their faces through the clear helmets. 2 eyes each, flat faces, strange hair on their heads. They did not look like monsters. They looked almost fragile. "You are smaller than I expected," Thorol admitted. Yuna smiled. "We get that a lot. But size is not everything." One of Thorol's advisors stepped forward. He was shorter than the commander, with darker blue skin. "I am Scholar Ventus. I specialize in xenobiology. May I ask some questions about your species?" "Of course," Hannah said. "That is why I am here. I am Medical Officer Hannah. I will answer anything you want to know." Ventus pulled out a small device and began recording. "The data you sent mentioned that humans evolved on a death world. Can you explain what that means?" Hannah took a breath. This was the important part. The part that would determine if the Valorians trusted them. "Earth is a dangerous planet," she began. "Our star produces harmful radiation. Our atmosphere contains reactive oxygen. Our oceans are filled with salt that can kill many species. We have extreme weather, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, and droughts." Ventus listened with growing horror. "How did you survive?" "We adapted. Our skin protects us from radiation. Our lungs process oxygen. Our bodies regulate temperature. We learned to predict weather patterns. We built shelters against natural disasters. We formed communities to help each other survive." "But the predators," Ventus said. "Our records show your planet has millions of dangerous species." Hannah nodded. "That is true. Many creatures on Earth can kill humans. Large mammals, venomous insects, microscopic diseases. We developed our immune system to fight illness. We created weapons to defend against predators. We used our intelligence to avoid danger. Your intelligence, the third Valorian said. He had not spoken before. His voice was harsh and skeptical. Is that not just another weapon? Yuna turned to face him. And you are? Military Advisor Korath. I still believe this meeting is a mistake. Thorol raised a hand. Korath, please. No, Commander. These creatures admit they evolved to fight. They admit their bodies are designed for violence. How can we trust them? Yuna met Korath's 4 eyes without flinching. You are right that humans can be violent. We have fought many wars. We have killed members of our own species over territory, resources, and beliefs. We are not peaceful by nature. The Valorians exchanged worried glances. Yuna continued. But violence is not our only trait. We also love. We protect our children with our lives. We form friendships that last forever. We create art and music that moves us to tears. We dream of better worlds and work to build them. She gestured to the stars above them. We did not cross the galaxy because we wanted to fight. We came because we wanted to meet new people. We wanted to learn. We wanted to share. The same drive that made us dangerous on Earth is what brought us here today. Our stubbornness, our curiosity, our refusal to give up. Korath said nothing, but his harsh expression softened slightly. Ventus spoke again, his voice quieter now. The chemical you call adrenaline. It makes you stronger when threatened. Is this true? Yes, Hannah answered. It is a survival mechanism. When we face danger, our bodies prepare to fight or run. Our hearts beat faster. Our muscles receive more blood. Our pain receptors become less sensitive. And you cannot control this? Not entirely. It is automatic. But we can manage it with training. Our soldiers learn to stay calm under pressure. Our doctors learn to keep their hands steady during emergencies. Adrenaline does not control us. We control it. Thorol had been listening quietly. Now he spoke again. Admiral Yuna, my government fears that humans will conquer our territory. That your warships are the first wave of an invasion. Can you promise this is not true? Yuna looked directly at him. Commander Thorol, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I cannot promise that humans will never be a threat. We are a complicated species. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. Thorol's expression darkened. But, Yuna continued, I can tell you what we want. We want peace. We want trade. We want friendship. Our governments sent us here to find allies, not enemies. We have enough enemies at home. We do not need more among the stars. Enemies at home? Thorol asked. Humans are not united. We have many nations, many cultures, many beliefs. We often disagree. Sometimes we fight. But we also learn from our mistakes. We grow. We improve. Ventus made a strange sound that might have been a laugh. You are saying your greatest enemy is yourselves? In many ways, yes. But that is also why we value friendship so highly. Because we know how precious it is. The conversation continued for hours. Ventus asked about human medicine and received detailed answers from Hannah. Korath asked about human weapons and received honest descriptions of their capabilities. Thorol asked about human government and learned about the United Earth Council. As time passed, something changed in the air. The fear began to fade. The suspicion remained, but it was softer now. Both sides were starting to see each other as people, not threats. Finally, Thorol raised his hand. Admiral Yuna, I must return to my fleet and report to the War Council. They will demand answers. What will you tell them? Thorol paused for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He extended his hand toward Yuna. I will tell them that humans are strange. Dangerous, yes. but also kind, honest, worthy of respect. I will recommend that we begin formal negotiations for peace." Yuna looked at the offered hand. She did not know if handshakes meant the same thing to Valorians, but she reached out and took it anyway. Thorol's grip was weak by human standards. His fingers were cold, but the gesture meant everything. "Thank you, Commander. You will not regret this." "I hope not, Admiral. For both our sakes." The two parties returned to their shuttles. The meeting was over. The real work was just beginning. On the flight back to the Eternal Dawn, Minho finally spoke. "Admiral, that was incredible. You convinced them. You actually convinced them." Yuna shook her head. "I did not convince anyone. I just told the truth. The truth is more powerful than any weapon." Hana looked out the window at the Valorian fleet in the distance. "Do you think they will really push for peace?" "Thorol will. Whether his government listens is another matter. But we have a chance now. A real chance." The shuttle docked with the Eternal Dawn. The crew was waiting for them, eager for news. When Yuna told them what happened, the ship erupted in celebration, but Yuna remained calm. She knew this was only the first step. There would be more meetings, more negotiations, more challenges. The fear would not disappear overnight. Trust would take years to build. But for the first time since they left Earth, Yuna allowed herself to hope. Humanity had found intelligent life among the stars. And against all odds, they had not destroyed each other. It was a good start. 3 days passed after the meeting on the moon. 3 days of waiting. 3 days of uncertainty. The human fleet remained in defensive position while the Valorians debated their fate. Admiral, Yuna slept only a few hours each night. She spent most of her time on the bridge, watching the scanner screens, waiting for any sign of movement. Her officers took turns bringing her food and coffee. They worried about her, but they understood. She was carrying the weight of humanity on her shoulders. On the 4th day, the news arrived. "Admiral," Minho called out suddenly. "Incoming transmission from the Valorian flagship. Commander Thorol is requesting to speak with you directly." Yuna stood up quickly, straightening her uniform. "Put him through." Thorol's face appeared on the main screen. He looked exhausted. His 4 eyes were dim, and his blue skin had turned pale. But there was something in his expression that gave Yuna hope. "Admiral Yuna," he said, "I have spoken with the War Council. The debate was difficult." "I can imagine," Yuna replied. "What is their decision?" Thorol paused. For a terrible moment, Yuna thought he was going to say the War Council had ordered an attack, that everything they had worked for was destroyed. Then Thorol smiled. It was a strange expression on his alien face, but unmistakable. The Valorian Empire has agreed to begin formal diplomatic negotiations with humanity. There will be no attack. Your ships are free to remain in our territory while we establish communication protocols. The bridge erupted in cheers. Officers hugged each other. Tears flowed freely. Months of tension released in a single moment of joy. Yuna kept her composure, but her voice trembled slightly. "Commander Thorol, thank you. You have given humanity the greatest gift possible. Do not thank me yet, Admiral. The War Council has conditions. They want a deeper understanding of humans before any official treaties are signed. They want to send observers to your ships. They want to study your species up close. Observers? A small delegation. Scientists and diplomats. They will live among your crew for a period of time. Learn your customs. Understand your behavior. Only then will the Council feel confident in moving forward." Yuna considered the proposal. Having aliens aboard would be challenging. The crew would need to be careful with every word and action. Any misunderstanding could destroy the fragile peace, but it was also an opportunity. If the Valorian observers saw humans at their best, they would become advocates for friendship. They would return home with stories of cooperation and kindness. "We accept," Una said. "When will the delegation arrive?" "They are preparing now. They will shuttle over within the hour. We will be ready." The transmission ended. Una turned to her crew with a serious expression. "Listen carefully. We are about to have guests. Valorian guests who still think we might be monsters. Every one of you represents humanity now. Be polite. Be patient. Be yourselves. Show them who we really are." The crew nodded solemnly. They understood the importance of the moment. Medical Officer Hannah raised her hand. "Admiral, the Valorians have different biological needs. Their atmosphere contains less oxygen than ours. Their temperature preference is much lower. Should I prepare special accommodations?" "Good thinking. Do whatever you need to make them comfortable. The galley should prepare suitable food as well," Minho added. "I doubt they can eat human meals." "Handle it. I want everything perfect." The hour passed quickly. The crew worked frantically to prepare for their visitors. Hannah converted a section of the ship into a low-oxygen, cool environment. The kitchen staff researched Valorian dietary needs and synthesized appropriate nutrients. Maintenance crews cleaned every corridor until the ship sparkled. When the Valorian shuttle docked, Admiral Una waited at the airlock with a small welcome party. The doors opened, and 3 figures stepped through. The first was Scholar Ventus, whom they had met on the moon. His dark blue face showed curiosity rather than fear. He carried several recording devices and scientific instruments. The second was a female Valorian named Sareth. She was smaller than the males, with lighter blue skin and delicate features. She moved with grace and confidence. Her role, they would learn later, was cultural observation. The third was a young male named Tarek. He was barely an adult by Valorian standards, with bright eyes full of wonder. He was a student, selected for this mission because of his open mind. "Welcome to the Eternal Dawn," Una said warmly. "I am Admiral Una. I will be your host during your stay." Ventus stepped forward. "Thank you, Admiral. We are honored to be here, and slightly terrified, if I am honest." Una laughed. It was a genuine sound, full of warmth. The Valorians looked at each other in surprise. They had never heard a human laugh before. It was a strange noise, but not unpleasant. "Being terrified is perfectly reasonable," Una admitted. "We must look very strange to you. But I promise, we will do everything possible to make you comfortable." She gestured down the corridor. "Let me give you a tour." The tour lasted several hours. The Valorian delegation saw everything. The bridge, where humans controlled the ship with incredible efficiency. The medical bay, where Hannah demonstrated healing technology. The engineering section, where massive engines hummed with power. The crew quarters, where soldiers lived like a family. Everywhere they went, humans greeted them with smiles. Officers shook their hands. Crew members offered them drinks and snacks. Children from the families aboard waved shyly from doorways. The young student Tarek was overwhelmed. He had grown up hearing stories about Death World monsters. He had expected violence and aggression. Instead, he found warmth and hospitality. "They are so friendly," he whispered to Sareth. "Why are they so friendly?" Sareth watched the humans carefully. "I do not know yet, but I intend to find out." The days that followed were revelatory for the Valorian observers. They attended crew meetings and watched humans debate decisions democratically. They visited the ship's school and saw children learning together regardless of family status. They observed the medical staff treating injuries with gentle care. But the most impactful moment came unexpectedly. It happened during a routine meal in the galley. The Valorians sat at their special table, eating their synthesized food, when a loud crash echoed through the room. A young crew member named Soman had tripped while carrying a tray. Dishes flew everywhere. Food splattered across the floor. Somin lay on the ground, her ankle twisted painfully beneath her. The Valorians expected punishment. In their society, such clumsiness would result in harsh discipline. Public embarrassment at minimum. Demotion more likely. Instead, something remarkable happened. The nearest crew members rushed to help. One knelt beside Somin and checked her ankle. Another began cleaning up the mess. A third offered words of comfort. "Are you okay? Does it hurt? Do not worry about the dishes. We will handle it. Someone call medical." Her ankle looked swollen. Within minutes, a medical team arrived. They carefully lifted Somin onto a stretcher and carried her away. The other crew members finished cleaning without complaint. Normal conversation resumed. No anger. No punishment. No shame. Just help. Tarek stared with his mouth open. They helped her. She made a mistake, and they helped her. Ventus was writing rapidly in his notes. This is significant. Very significant. Sarah stood up. I wish to speak with the crew members who helped. May I? One of the human officers nearby nodded. Of course. Is something wrong? No, something is right. I just need to understand it. Sareth approached the crew members who had cleaned up the mess. They looked confused but willing to talk. Why did you help her? Sareth asked. She created a problem. She made extra work for others. In my society, she would be disciplined. The crew members exchanged glances. One of them, a young man named Jungwoo, answered. She is our friend. She had an accident. Why would we punish her for something she did not do on purpose? But discipline maintains order. Without consequences, how do you prevent future mistakes? Jungwoo shrugged. Everyone makes mistakes. Today, it was Somin. Tomorrow it might be me. We help each other because someday we will need help too. This is normal for humans? Very normal. We call it kindness. Sarah stood silently for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She bowed her head slightly. Thank you for explaining. I believe I am beginning to understand your species. That night, the Valorian delegation held a private meeting in their quarters. They shared their observations and debated their conclusions. They are not what we expected, Ventus admitted. The biological data suggested predators, warriors, but their behavior is more like family, Sareth finished. They treat each other like family, even strangers. Even us. They're still dangerous, Tarek said. I saw their weapons. I watched their soldiers train. They can kill efficiently when they choose to. Yes, Sareth agreed. But they choose not to. That is the important part. They have the power to destroy, but they prefer to build. They have the strength to dominate, but they offer friendship instead. Ventus closed his notes. I believe our report to the War Council will be very different from what they expected. Will they believe us? Tarek asked. They will have to. The truth is too important to ignore. Miles away on the Valorian flagship, Commander Thorell read the preliminary reports with a growing sense of hope. The observers were impressed. They were changing their minds. They were seeing humans the way he had seen them. Not as monsters. As potential friends, Thorell smiled in the darkness of his cabin. He had taken the observation mission lasted 30 days. 30 days that changed everything. When the Valorian delegation finally returned to their flagship, they carried more than scientific data. They carried stories, memories, friendships that would last for the rest of their lives. Young, Tarek had learned to play human card games. He was surprisingly good at poker, once he understood the concept of bluffing. The crew had nicknamed him Lucky, and he wore the title with pride. Scholar, Ventus had completed the most comprehensive study of human biology ever produced by an alien species. His work would become required reading at every Valorian university. It would change how the galaxy understood humanity forever. Sareth had formed an unlikely friendship with medical officer Hannah. They spent hours discussing the differences between their cultures. They found more similarities than differences. They promised to write each other when the mission ended. But the most important change happened inside the observers themselves. They had arrived terrified of humans. They left as advocates. Commander Thorol welcomed them aboard his ship personally. Report. Ventus stepped forward. He had practiced this speech many times, but now the words flowed naturally. Commander, we were wrong. The War Council was wrong. Humans are not weapons. They are not monsters. They are people. Different from us, yes. Dangerous when threatened, certainly. But also kind, generous, capable of love and sacrifice and compassion. Thorol nodded slowly. And your recommendation? Full diplomatic relations. Trade agreements. Cultural exchange. Alliance against common threats. The humans offer us friendship, Commander. We would be fools to reject it. Sareth spoke next. I observed their social structures. Humans form bonds easily. They care for strangers as if they were family. They protect the weak and support the struggling. Their society is not perfect, but it is trying to improve. Tarek raised his hand like a student. And they are fun. They play games and tell jokes and celebrate achievements. They know how to enjoy life despite all the dangers they face. Thorol listened to every word. When the reports were finished, he stood in silence for a long moment. The War Council will need to hear this directly. Prepare a formal presentation. We leave for Valoria Prime immediately. The journey to the Valorian homeworld took 4 days. During that time, the observers refined their reports. They gathered evidence. They prepared for the most important speech of their lives. Admiral Yuna received updates through diplomatic channels. She knew the observers had returned safely. She knew they had spoken positively about humans. But she also knew that the War Council was unpredictable. They might ignore the reports. They might decide that fear was stronger than facts. All she could do was wait. On Valoria Prime, the War Council assembled in the Great Chamber. 12 leaders representing the 12 provinces of the Empire. Ancient and powerful beings who controlled the fate of billions. Commander Thorol stood before them with his observers. The chamber was silent. Every eye focused on the small group that had spent a month among monsters. High Councilor Varath spoke first. Her voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. Commander Thorol, you have returned from contact with an unknown species. A species that our scans identified as extremely dangerous. A species that arrived in our territory with warships. Tell us why we should not order their immediate destruction. Thorol bowed respectfully. High Counselor, I understand your concerns. I shared them initially, but I have learned something that changes everything. He gestured to his observers. These 3 individuals lived among the humans for 30 days. They studied their biology, their society, their behavior. They are ready to share what they discovered. Varath waved her hand. Proceed. Ventus stepped forward. His presentation was masterful. He showed the council everything. The biological data that proved humans were survivors, not engineered weapons. The psychological studies that demonstrated their capacity for empathy. The cultural observations that revealed their values. He played recordings of human laughter, human music, human children playing with alien visitors. He showed them Soman falling in the galley, and the crew rushing to help her. He described Admiral Yuna facing down an enemy fleet without firing a shot. By the end, several council members were leaning forward in their seats. Some looked thoughtful. Others looked moved, but one counselor was not convinced. Military Counselor Draven, the oldest and most cautious member of the council, stood with anger in his eyes. Pretty pictures and emotional stories, he said coldly. But the facts remain. Humans are death world predators. They admit to fighting wars. They admit to killing their own kind. How can we trust creatures with such a history of violence? The chamber grew tense. Draven was powerful. His opinion carried weight. Tarek, the youngest observer, suddenly stepped forward. His voice trembled slightly, but his words were clear. "Counselor Draven, may I speak?" Draven looked surprised. "You are a student. What could you possibly say that matters?" "I am young, yes. But I was there. I saw them with my own eyes." Tarek took a deep breath. "You are right that humans have a violent history. They told us about their wars. They did not hide anything. But they also told us how those wars hurt them, how they lost loved ones, how they carry the pain of every conflict in their hearts." He paused, gathering courage. Humans are not proud of their violence. They are ashamed of it. They work every day to be better, to build instead of destroy, to heal instead of harm. That is what makes them different from true monsters. Monsters feel no regret. Humans feel regret every single day. Draven stared at the young observer. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he sat down. The fight seemed to leave his body. "Continue," he said quietly. High Counselor Varath rose from her seat. Her expression was unreadable. The entire chamber held its breath. "I have heard enough," she announced. "The evidence is clear. The humans are not our enemies. They are potential allies. I propose that we accept their offer of friendship and begin formal diplomatic relations immediately." The vote was called. One by one, the council members raised their hands in agreement. The final count was unanimous. On the eternal dawn, Admiral Yuna received the news at midnight. Minho burst onto the bridge with tears streaming down his face. "Admiral, the Valorian Council has voted. They want peace. They want friendship. We did it." Yuna stood frozen for a moment. Then her legs gave out, and she sat down heavily in her chair. Her hands were shaking. 20-5 years of service. Countless battles. Impossible missions. But this was the moment she had been waiting for her entire life. Humanity was not alone anymore. The following weeks were a blur of activity. Diplomats arrived from Earth. Trade agreements were drafted. Cultural exchange programs were established. The two species learned to trust each other one day at a time. Commander Thorl and Admiral Yuna became close friends. They met regularly to share stories and coordinate efforts. They laughed at their initial misunderstanding. They marveled at how close they had come to war. "You terrified us," Thorl admitted one evening. "Your biology was like nothing we had ever seen. We thought you were weapons sent to destroy us." Yuna smiled. "And we thought you might destroy us for being too scary." Both sides were afraid. But we chose to talk instead of fight. "That is the true lesson," Thorl agreed. "Fear is natural, but it does not have to control us." Years passed. The alliance between humans and Valorians grew stronger. They traded technology and culture. They explored the galaxy together. They faced new threats as united friends. Other species encountered the alliance and asked the same questions. What were humans? Were they dangerous? Could they be trusted? The Valorians always gave the same answer. Humans were dangerous. The most dangerous species in the galaxy. But not because of their strength or their weapons. They were dangerous because they refused to give up. They faced impossible odds and kept going. They fell down and got back up. They made mistakes and learned from them. They were dangerous because they believed in Hope. And that kind of danger was exactly what the galaxy needed. On Earth, monuments were built to commemorate first contact. Schools taught the story of Admiral Yuna and Commander Thorl. Children grew up dreaming of friendship among the stars. And somewhere in the vastness of space, Human warships still traveled. Their scanners still registered terrifying readings. Their crews still carried the biology of a death world. But now, when other species saw those ships coming, they did not feel fear. They felt hoped out because they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them with courage, kindness, and an unbreakable determination to make friends in the darkness. That was the human way, and it always would be.